now request our chief guest to come and share his experiences with us.
Shraddheya Manoharji, members of the Samithi and Bhaktas of Kanchi Kamakoti, Chandrasekhar and Saraswati, Swamigal, known to all of us as Paramacharya. I was brought up in a convent school in Delhi. And then after my master's degree, I went to America. And there I got my PhD. I became a professor at a very well-known university called Harvard. And I was there for 10 years. And I was literally brought up in the European tradition of convent schools, and then of course America was also Western culture. And I knew very little about, except what my mother taught me about Hinduism. I knew very little about our saints, our history and so on. One day, one of my Indian students at Harvard invited me for having tea in the students' dormitory. So I went to his room first, and there I saw a picture of Paramacharya. This student actually was not an ordinary student, he was an IAS officer. And he's being an IAS officer, Government of India to send them to Harvard and some of these American universities for updating their knowledge. And he had been sent to update his knowledge on economics, so which is what I was a professor of, so he was taking my courses. So I asked him, who is this? So he gave me the name and said he is a great saint. That's all that conversation took place. But that photograph stuck in my mind. I don't know why at that stage, and now I know. During the emergency, I had decided to rattle Mrs. Gandhi. So I was abroad at that time, I had escaped abroad. Mrs. Gandhi piled 18 cases on me. She even got an Interpol notice issued against me and an arrest warrant, declared me proclaimed offender, even put a reward on my head, which was at that time the highest in the history of India. So I decided I must teach her a lesson. So what shall I do? Because everything had become silent in India. I'm now talking about 1976. So I decided that somehow I'll enter India, then enter Parliament, and after signing the register, I'll make a short speech which will go on the record, and then escape. Now, all my colleagues thought it was a crazy idea. How can you do that? So I don't know, it came to my mind, I must do it. So I set about, it's a long story how I did it, but I came back to India and I managed to come out of the airport undetected. And then I entered Parliament on the day, it was 2-3 days later, Parliament was opening, I went. Of course, they recognized me. The people at the gate, the policemen, the watch and watch staff, but they could not stop me. So I went into the house and I timed it in such a way that time that was Rajya Sabha at that stage. Later on it came to Lok Sabha. Rajya Sabha, the Vice President of India, B.D. Chatti, was reading the obituary list. And I arrived just as I was reading the last name. And I made a point of order that you're reading the obituary list. But during the intercession period, democracy has also died. You should include that also in the obituary list. Now, everybody was shocked to see me. How did he come? And meantime, the vice president said, everybody will stand for 2 minutes silence. So I stood up. I took that opportunity when everybody stood up to leave Parliament, and then raced to the railway station, and then finally ended up in Nepal and caught a flight back to America. And that was the end of Mrs. Gandhi's credibility. All international newspapers had this story, how she says that she's in control of the country, but here's a man who's got an arrest warrant in his name, and he's coming in and going out. And then Mrs. Gandhi later on told me, when she returned back to power, that was the day she decided to have elections, which she lost. Now I'm telling you this story. It is connected with Paramacharya in two ways. When I boarded the flight in America, and the flight landed in New Delhi, and I was sure, everybody said you'll be arrested without doubt. When I landed, when the flight was about to land, that same picture I saw on the students' thing of Paramacharya came before me. I thought I was asleep, so I, washed my face. With tissue paper. But that stuck in my mind that if I ever see him anywhere, I'll go and say namaste to him. But Paramacharya had obviously given blessings that this will happen. So that's how I succeeded in the emergency in doing this. Some months later, after Mrs. Gandhi lost the elections, the state assembly elections for Tamil Nadu was declared. So I was a star campaigner for the Janata Party. So I was touring. So I came by Kanchipuram. And outside Kanchipuram, in a village area, there were lots of cars standing, very posh cars standing on the road. So I asked our Janata Party workers, why so many cars here in this village area? So they said, the Shankaracharya is sitting in his hut there, and people are going there to get his blessing. So I said, you mean Chandrasekhar and Saraswati? They said, yes. So I said, stop the car, I want to go and say my namaste. So I went to his hut, and he was sitting there giving darshan. And there was a big crowd. Then I moved in the front. And then the Paramacharya saw me. And he looked at me, and then got up, turned his back, and went inside the hut and shut the door. So I told him, it looks like the man is angry with me, so let's go. So I left and went to the car. Now, I had to walk about 25 feet. As I reached the car, the Shastrigal, that is the Pujaris, they came running. Paramacharya is calling you. He wants you to come back. So I went back, and he was sitting, and then he asked me in Tamil. He said, "Now unaku uttaravu kudukala nee eppadi kalambita?" That is, I didn't give you permission. How did you go away? So I said, I didn't know that I needed your permission. So he said, you came to see me, and then after, he said, without taking my permission, you leave. No, you can't do that. But now I'm giving you permission to leave. But before that, I will tell you, why did you go? So I said, you went away inside. I thought you don't like me. So that's why I went away. So all these pujaris were saying, you shouldn't talk like this to Paramacharya. So he made them quiet. He said, you see, I went inside and I was looking for a press cutting. So that press cutting is here, and he gave it to me. It was from the Indian Express, and there was a photograph and a letter to the editor asking, is Subramanian Swamy a Tamil? And the answer was, yes, he's from Madurai, he's a Tamil. So he asked me, is this you? So I said, yes. He said, now you can go. So I forgot about it. But again, after about 2-3 months, I came to give a speech in Trichy, and on the way back, in Bangalore, and then we went to Chennai, and that route passes Kanchipuram. So I said, let me go and see whether it's still there. When I went, there was again a crowd in the same place, and he asked all the crowd to go. I said, no, there are many cinema stars and all. He said, no, all go. And then I was alone with him. So then he began asking me, how is the Janata Party doing? And started. And that meeting lasted 2 hours. In that, he gave me the first lesson in politics, on do's and don'ts in politics. First, he told me, your job is not to go after any post. I said, why? I'm in politics, I can't go after post. No, because when you will get the post will come after you. And that's what is, I've been to Parliament 6 times, I've been a minister twice. I never knew it will be coming. Suddenly it came. So he said, you don't need a post. But when you need a post, the post will come to you. You don't go to the post. So I was taken aback by that. I said, all right, if you say that. And since then, I have never asked for a post. Even Parliament membership, I have not asked. But suddenly, it turns up and I get what I never expected. So I was a bit surprised. But anyway, he was God. By then, I was convinced that he was God. Because how could he know all these things? Then he told me, your policy should be to befriend Israel and China. So I said, Israel and China? Those days, Israel was a very unpopular country in a popular nation in our country. People thought they were, especially because the Congress party thought that the Muslims will be annoyed. Then he said, no, Israel and China. I said, China? They have taken away our land. How can we be friendly? No, you can be friendly with them. And you must be friendly with them. So I said, Israel, everybody will throw me out of the party. He said, no, nobody will throw out of the party. This is all, of course, this conversation in Tamil. So I said, all right. So that order of his, I implemented. And I became very good friends of Israel, and even today, very good friends of China. And because of that, many things which the government could not do, I was able to do because of my friendship. But one thing surprised me is the warmth of the Chinese. Because till that time, the Chinese would not accept that the Arunachal and Aksai chain is even disputed. They said, no, it is ours. We have nothing to discuss. And after a meeting, Paramacharya, I went to Delhi and I met Morarji Desai, who was the Prime Minister. And he told me, I've been thinking, you're a scholar, you've read also, about China and so many other countries. Why China is not accepting that Arunachal and Aksai chain is disputed? So I said, because you don't talk to them. Why don't you talk to them? But in the back of our mind, saying that Paramacharya just a few days ago tells me that you talk to China, you make friends with China, and here Morarji Desai, who is the most anti-Chinese politician I know, suddenly tells me, why is China like this? So I told Morarji Desai, why don't you talk to the Chinese? He said, no, I don't want to talk to them, you talk to them. So I said, how I can go? I was that time only a member of Parliament. You give me a letter, I will go. He said, yes, I'll give you a letter. Tomorrow, the letter will reach your house. So with that letter, I went to the Chinese embassy and they invited me. And I went to Beijing. All the top leaders received me. Nobody could believe this. I was the first time Lok Sabha MP. I was in my mid-30s, and people were surprised. And the worst affected people were the communists, because they were not invited, but I was invited by China to visit them. So I began by saying, that we are a big country, you are a big country. Whatever has happened in 62 is another matter. But why can't you start improving relations by just saying that Aksai Chin is disputed and this Arunachal is disputed, and we are willing to discuss this matter with India. You don't want to even discuss it, which means you want another military conflict. So the Chinese discussed amongst themselves, the leaders, and in the evening dinner which they had hosted in my honor, they told me, you can tell your Prime Minister, we are ready to